We cannot say na equal ang isang party list representative sa isang senador. Never.
Kung meron po tayong hindi pagkakaintindihan, i-focus po natin sa issue. Huwag natin daanin sa aruganteng pananalita.
After hearing your privileged speech with regard to the unparliamentary remarks of Senator Joel Villanueva, for me, Mr. Speaker, as a first-termer and a party list representative, I felt very insulted.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Almighty Allah, the sovereign creator of the universe, the God of no equal. Peace and blessings be upon the last messenger of God, the seal of the prophets, Prophet Muhammad al-Hashimiyah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Mr. Speaker, today I rise as a proud member of the House of Representatives, an institution that embodies the essence of democracy and the collective will of the Filipino people. I wish to address the careless comments of Senator Joel Villanueva, maligning our party list representatives and by extension, the House of Representatives. This is his comments, and I quote, "We cannot say na equal ang isang party list representative sa isang senador. Never." Unquote. Mr. Speaker, para po sa karagdagang konteksto, narito po ang video.
We cannot say na equal ang isang party list representative sa isang senador. Never. Ilan bang naboto nakukuha ng pinakamababang senador ngayon, Mr. President? 15 million votes, Mr. President. Ang Batanes, for instance, 6,000, 7,000 vote. You're a congressman? I don't have anything against Congress again, Mr. President. But can you really compare apples to oranges? Mr. President, it's ridiculous also. But for me, the most insulting is the fact that when our people ask to vote for their senators, they are aware of what they are voting for. National leaders po ito. National leaders. Hindi pang distrito. Hindi pang party list representative. And now, what will happen? Are we talking about disenfranchising our voters now? We cannot say na
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to Senator Joel Villanueva, he gravely misrepresented the nature of the two houses which comprise Congress. Siya po ay nagkakamali sa kanyang pangmamaliit sa mga party list representatives. Mr. Speaker, the 1987 Constitution vests legislative power in one Congress, iisang Kongreso, shared between the House of Representatives and the Senate. This is what the Constitution referred to as the bicameral legislature. This bicameral nature, Mr. Speaker, aims at diversifying perspectives. The House, with its ear to the ground, closely monitoring the heartbeat of the districts, meeting and coordinating directly with the people. And the Senate looks towards more overarching national and international issues. The two houses present themselves as checks to each other. The Senate ensures that bills are in line with national interests, while the House of Representatives ensures that these same bills do not disregard the needs and the rights of the people. Magkakaakibat, Mr. Speaker, magkaakibat ang dalawang parte ng Kongreso sa pagpasa ng mga batas na ikakabuti ng ating bansa. Under this current Constitution, Mr. Speaker, one cannot exist without the other. Hindi gagana ang Senado ng walang House of Representatives. Gayon din, Mr. Speaker, ang House of Representatives kung walang Senado. Mr. Speaker, in the history of the Philippine legislature, we have seen both forms. It was unicameral under the Malolos Congress, the American-controlled Philippine Commission, the 1935 National Assembly, and the 1973 Batasang Pambansa. It shifted back and forth with a bicameral form, most prominently in 1916 under the Jones Act, under the 1940 Amendment to the National Assembly, and under this current 1987 Philippine Constitution. Mr. Speaker, we have seen that throughout history, there is a tendency to return to the bicameral form as one which is more attuned to our needs as a nation of diverse voices. Makikita po natin na mula noon hanggang ngayon, ang House of Representatives ay matatag na nanatili maging anuman ang porma ng lehislatura. All throughout this country's political history, and we've experienced and seen the changing of legislature in form and in size from unicameral to bicameral. But never, Mr. Speaker, did we experience the abolition of the House of Representatives. Ang mga terminong mataas o mababang kapulungan ay di mahanap sa konstitusyon. These are terms adopted as a matter of convenience, considering that there was a time, Mr. Speaker, when the Philippine Congress shared one building in which the Senate occupied the upper floors and the House of Representatives occupied the lower floors. Meaning, Mr. Speaker, it only describes office location, never about ranking or authority. In other legislatures, Mr. Speaker, which inspired our own, the term referred to the size of each chamber, with the lower house being the more numerous. Kaya nga po, Mr. Speaker, karamihan din po sa atin dito, ang gusto nila ay bigger house. We are the bigger house because indeed, we are bigger in numbers. Personally, Mr. Speaker, I have no trouble accepting the term lower house. Not because the house is inferior, no, never. But it only simply means that it is part of Congress, which is closer to and rooted in the needs of the people. This fact presents itself in the powers granted by the Constitution and exercising its supreme power, the power of the purse. The General Appropriations Bill must originate from the House. The Supreme Act emanating from the part of Congress more attuned to the supreme authority, which is the people. Our journey, Mr. Speaker, in crafting legislation is a testament to the strength of our collegial nature, where diverse voices converge for the greater good of our nation. Mr. Speaker, the framers of the current Constitution understands that with the geographic realities of this country, its ethnic and cultural diversity, the people may only be represented by a House of Representatives that is as diverse as they are. The division between the electorate of the House and the Senate does not lend itself to a hierarchy based on number of votes. It is a mode expressly chosen to ensure even the smallest districts has equal standing to exercise legislative power. Isang pagbabaliwala sa saligang batas ang mga komentong ito ng ating dakilang senador. Ang binilang ng mga boto para sa mga miyembro ng Kongreso ay nariyan lamang upang malaman ng COMELEC kung sino ang nanalo sa eleksyon at kung sino ang maaaring umupo sa Kongreso. Hindi po yan basihan ang bilang ng boto sa laki o liit ng mandato ng isang miyembro ng Kongreso. To further stress that fact, Mr. Speaker, the current party-list system, which the good senator has maligned and was created expressly to lend a voice, was created, Mr. Speaker, to expressly lend a voice to the voiceless. This is a system, Mr. Speaker, that ensures that the most deserving under the law, according to the late President Magsaysay, are given their due hand in legislating for the nation. It is an innovation, Mr. Speaker, which the Supreme Court in Atong Paglaom versus Comelec explains, and I quote, "The innovation is a party list system that would expand opportunities for electoral participation to allow those who could not win in the legislative district elections a fair chance to enter the House of Representatives other than through the district election system," unquote. The good senator should be knowledgeable, Mr. Speaker, of this fact, considering that he himself was a party list representative serving this Congress for a time. Mr. Speaker, to follow the good senator's logic would lead to a tyranny of numbers, where districts most deserving of aid and development, such as in my district in Llano del Sur, would be starved to continually feed Metro Manila, which is a vote-rich area. It would lead to a system that is obsessed with projects for vote-rich districts, Mr. Speaker. I cannot accept that a statesman such as himself would hold such a myopic view of the legislative branch. Mr. Speaker, we are all equal public servants, and only the people are superior to us. Tayong mga kongresista at senador ay parehong miyembro ng iisang 19th Congress. Mr. Speaker, parliamentary courtesy is a cornerstone of our proceedings. It is through this courtesy that we engage in respectful debates, recognizing the value of each member who brings topic or issues to the table. The give and take of ideas fuel the democratic engine, enabling us to refine policies that would truly address the needs of our constituents. In fighting, Mr. Speaker, however, pose a grave disservice to the very people we are sworn to serve. Our disagreements must and should be channeled constructively, fostering an environment where the best ideas rise to the top. A divided House weakens our ability to respond effectively to the challenges facing our country, hindering progress and hindering the realization of our shared vision for a better Philippines. Tayong lahat po, Mr. Speaker, na miyembro ng Kongresong ito ay nasa serbisyo publiko. Kung meron po tayong hindi pagkakaintindihan, i-focus po natin sa issue. Huwag natin daanin sa aruganteng pananalita. Let us recommit ourselves to the principles that define our institution, Mr. Speaker. Cooperation, understanding, and a dedication to the common good. Together, Mr. Speaker, we can rise above this discord, or any discord for that matter, navigate through our differences, and emerge stronger as advocates for the Filipino people. Let us sit down and talk. Let us put an end to this name-calling. And for God, let us start and get back to work. May we uphold the sacred trust bestowed upon us by our constituents, and may our actions be a beacon of hope for the united and prosperous Philippines. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mayang hapon kaninyong tanan.
Thank you for standing up for the House and its members, Congressman Adyong. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that the gentleman from the Ako Bicol Party List, the Honorable Jill Bungalon, be recognized for his interpellation.
The gentleman from Ako Bicol Party List is recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, would the good gentleman from Llano del Sur yield to few questions?
Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to share insights with the gentleman from Ako Bicol Party List.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After hearing your privileged speech with regard to the unparliamentary remarks of Senator Joel Villanueva, for me, Mr. Speaker, As a first-termer and a party list representative, I felt very insulted. And I would like to express that in this august body. At any rate, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, is there anything under the 1987 Constitution that tells us that the Senate is supreme over the House of Representatives because of the votes garnered in the election?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as a response, the basis, Mr. Speaker, the only basis for us to determine the mandate, which is spelled out in one document, and this is the 1987 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, under Article 6, Section 1, it only speaks about the legislative power vested in Congress of the Philippines, which shall consist of two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate of the Philippines. Never did the Constitution or anywhere in the Constitution mention anything about votes must be equal to a more or to a superior mandate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if the line of the logic, Mr. Speaker, is the number of votes garnered, if we follow, Mr. Speaker, that logic, it also would be applied to not only the legislature, but even the executive. For example, kung ang mayor dito, kunti ang boto niya, tapos mas superior ba ang mayor ng mas malaking boto? It only speaks about for the COMELEC to determine the winners in an election. Never about ranking or authority or superior mandate, Mr. Speaker. So the response to that, Mr. Speaker, is very clear. Wala po na nagsasabing mas superior ang Senado dahil nakakakuha po sila ng mas maraming boto kaysa mga miyembro po ng party list at district representatives sa House of Representatives.
Thank you for that very clear explanation, distinguished colleague. I asked that question, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, because I couldn't understand why Senator Joel Villanueva could make such disappointing statements against members of the House of Representatives, particularly the members of the party list, when he himself, Mr. Speaker, was once a member of this chamber as a party list representative. Going to another point, Mr. Speaker, may I ask the distinguished colleague if he knows a person named Janet Lim Napoles?
Well, Mr. Speaker, she appears to be so famous a couple of years ago. Yes, I happen to be familiar with the name, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, basically, it is already a public knowledge that Ms. Janet Lim Napoles is a businesswoman who is convicted for plunder and the one who masterminded the PDAP scam. Now, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, may I know what is the involvement of Senator Joel Villanueva in the PDAP scam?
Well, to put it in a nutshell, Mr. Speaker, there was an allegation that our good senator, when he was, I guess, still serving as a congressman, there was a case which implying his office that he was involved in the PDAF scam. That is actually the case. I believe there was already a decision that was made about the case. So I think the defense of the good senator is that his signature was forged. That's the primary defense that he argued before the courts, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, so the mere fact that he was identified in this very controversial scam, therefore he knew about the PDAP scam and therefore he is related to Ms. Janet Lim Napoles. Is that correct, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague?
Well, I would agree, Mr. Speaker, at some point, if you are charged with something as grave as that, you would probably have an inkling on how the case or the charges filed against you. And I think the defense, Mr. Speaker, is that the signature was forged, but if I were, for example, if I were in his shoes, I would probably file cases those persons who have forged my signature. So dapat, kung galit ka talaga, dapat kung ako yun, dapat nag-file na lang ako ng kaso doon sa nag-forge ng signature ko.
Thank you, distinguished colleague. So, considering that he knew about the Napoles scam, and you mentioned a while ago that allegedly his signatures were forged, and may I just state for the record and ask the distinguished colleague, if the good senator filed a case against this accuser, Janet Lim Napoles, to prove that he doesn't know, or even if he is not even connected with this convicted plunderer?
Well, I think on a personal, an individual filing of charges from his office or from his person, I haven't read or I would not know that such a filing of cases against Janet Napoles on the basis of forgery of his signature was ever filed before the proper courts, Mr. Speaker. So my understanding is there was no case filed against the forging of the signature and may perhaps against Janet Napoles.
At any rate, Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the distinguished colleague from the Lanao del Sur for standing up for this institution, for the House of Representatives, and even for the party list representatives. That would be all, Mr. Speaker, and thank you.